Welcome to Late Night Writers. On this episode, we talked to Ari Mason.
Ari was awesome on this episode, discussing with us how she went from being a journalist now to an Instagram influencer, and everything else that's involved with the transition from that.
You can find her on Instagram at Little Pony Big Jump. Enjoy! Welcome to Late Night Writers. I'm Gretchen, and I'm joined by Lucas
Hello.
and Ari Mason.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
So, Ari, you have the cutest Instagram handle. It's Little Pony Big Jump. How did you come up with that?
It's just one of those things. It kind of came to me, and one of the reasons that I love the Instagramming and the blogging is I actually have a writing background. So I was an English major in college and then switched over to journalism, and before I got into the digital space, which is what I do now, I had a past life as a journalist. And so I've always loved writing and kind of had a way with words. And it was just one of those things I sort of fell into.
So when did
you...
when did you start writing?
I was 6 years old.
Okay.
So I don't come from a horsey family. My mom actually was planning a trip to a dude ranch with a group of friends, and she didn't really know how to ride, but she wanted to take a couple lessons to just familiarize herself. So she brought me to the barn one day when she was taking a lesson, and it was one of those love at first sight kind of things. You had a small girl and a bunch of horses, and it was I was hooked right off the bat.
So did you get a horse immediately, or did it take time after that?
Oh gosh, it was a long fought battle for me and quite the journey. So I took lessons growing up. I did a ton of half leases. I started competing when I was maybe like 11, 12, 13, that age range. But I didn't own a horse until I bought Odie, which was just about 2 years ago. So I was the kid who was always begging my parents every Christmas, every birthday, can I please have a horse? Can I please have a horse? And we did end up getting a dog, but there was no horse for me until I was an adult and I was able to self-fund.
Did they support you while you were competing, though?
Oh, they've been fantastic. Yeah, they were the ultimate barn parents. Not really knowing the horse world, they showed up for me all the time. So they were always bringing me to my lessons, my practice rides. They came to every show. My poor mom had to watch me hit the ground more times than I could count. But she was just so great, and I loved seeing my dad around the horses. He didn't have much exposure to them before me, but he loves all animals, and he just thinks horses are super cool, so he'll take every opportunity he can to come hang out at the barn.
So on your blog it says that you had taken a break between middle school and then when you got Odie. What made you decide to get back into it?
I couldn't stay away. It was one of those where there were so many complicating factors growing up, and I was playing sports, and I actually had a musical background, so I was starting to focus on a potential career in music, which I diverged from. But it was one of those things where I think once you get bitten by the horse bug, it's sort of a part of you forever, and it got to the point where I just missed it. I started thinking about it. I went to school at UConn.
Okay.
Which is actually the oldest agricultural school in the country, and has, I think, the longest standing Morgan horse breeding program. And so there's an equestrian team. I didn't compete on the team, but I did take lessons, and so that was sort of a perfect opportunity for me to kind of segue back into it.
What were you studying at the time?
I started as English and Spanish, double major. I've taken Spanish my whole life, and I guess maybe it goes along with the writing and the musicality, but I just always loved foreign languages. So I stuck with the Spanish major, and then I ended up switching, I think, my sophomore year from English to journalism, and that was how I sort of got into the news world post-grad.
Okay, so then you graduated, and then what was after that? You started your career?
Yep. So I graduated. I started working for a TV news station. I was wearing a lot of different hats. And I ultimately sort of funneled into digital, which is where my heart lies. And I think that's sort of evident in the blogging and Instagram.
For sure.
I work pretty much exclusively in digital now. I run a website for an e-commerce company. And so after 3 years working in the news world, I transitioned to digital, and that's kind of where I'm at now.
So how exactly did you find Odie?
Facebook, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. So I had moved around. I was in Connecticut, and then I was in New York when I was working in journalism. And then when I decided I wanted to make a shift, my whole family is from New England, and I loved being in New York City, but it never quite felt like home to me. So I said, you know what, I'm moving to Boston. And I live in the greater Boston area now. So
Okay.
I quit my job. I said, I'm going to go back to where my family is, and I came up here. And once I got here, that was the opportunity for me to start riding again. You know, it's so hard to be able to do that. I was living right outside New York, and I did have a car, but getting around and the commute into and out of Manhattan was just a lot, so it really wasn't feasible for me to ride when I was there.
Yeah.
So as soon as I moved up, and then I started dreaming about horses again, I was like, all right, this is the moment. I need to do this.
This is the time.
I need one now.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's no more excuses. And so having leased for, you know, on and off throughout my life, I said that's a perfect jumping off point. Really
Yeah.
wanted to get back into the saddle. And I didn't just want to do a weekly lesson. I really wanted to be kind of building that bond and having some time to just hack around and fall in love with it again. And so I joined a bunch of horse groups on Facebook, of which there are tons.
Oh, yeah.
I was overwhelmed. I had no idea the whole community was there. And I just started putting feelers out, and I was amazed. I wasn't really expecting anything from it, but I was amazed at the responses that I got. And I ended up setting 5 trial rides in 5 days.
Oh, wow.
After
Wow.
not having ridden in years, I was going to ride 5 horses in 5 days, and that's what I did. And
That's crazy.
It happened to be the last of the 5. I was pretty sure I was going to go with the mare I had tried the day before, but I still had the ride set up with Odie, and I said, you know what, let's just go do it. Why not, right? What do I have to lose?
Yeah.
And so the rest was kind of history. I fell in love with him right away.
So at what point did you start your Instagram? Is that like your Instagram, or did you set a separate Instagram up for you and Odie?
It's a separate. I pretty much neglected my personal Instagram. I really haven't posted on it in forever. And I kind of made the transition because I was finding that all of the content that I had and that I was excited about was horse related.
Yeah.
So I was starting to post a lot, and I feel like everyone kind of goes through this progression, right, in setting up equestrian accounts. Like, my personal account suddenly started transforming into my horse account, and all of my non-horsey friends were very supportive, but then I started thinking, is this the right forum for it?
Right.
And I just had so many, and I didn't want to post too many of them. I didn't know if the people who were following me would be interested. So it just kind of was a little seed of an idea that I sat with for a little while, and then I decided to just do it, mostly as a place to just dump all of the photos and videos. And at this point, I had owned him for, I don't know, maybe a year, a little more than a year. I started my account in August. And our journey has just been fantastic and so rewarding. And so I think that was really what sparked it for me, was I want to have a place where I can not only see for myself the transformation and the progress that we were making, but also be able to share it with the people who were interested. And it just kind of like evolved from there.
So being a journalist, and telling your stories through words, how has it been different, since August, telling your story through pictures on Instagram and on your blog?
It's actually such a cool experience for me. I do have a little bit of a photography background as well. And so what's been interesting about that is being on the other side of the lens. I did a little bit of freelance work. I had a stint where I wanted to go down the photojournalism road, and then my professors kind of reeled me back in and said, well, with smartphones, multimedia journalism, maybe you don't want to go there. I think it's a good problem to have, though, being interested in too many things, right?
Oh, definitely.
Of course.
So that was sort of me, like, how do I narrow my focus? But what I love about Instagram and the blog is it lets me draw from all of the things that I'm passionate about and kind of put them together. So have, the photography piece where even if I'm, I take all the photos of Odie, most of my content is like a headshot of my horse, and thank goodness for portrait mode. It has made my life so much easier.
Awesome feature.
Right. And then I have like 6 different photo editing apps on my phone. That was something I really used to love to do, was work in Photoshop, and so I get a little bit of that. And then the content curation and the design and the visual piece of the blog, all I think kind of really nicely supplements the writing. So it's been cool to just sort of package it all together and take, the words and the writing piece of it, and then integrate the photography piece, the design piece, and then obviously the baseline is the horses and the community.
Right. Instagram's a great outlet for creative people. So at what point did you start to gather a following? Was that surprising to you?
Oh, it totally was. It's, it's a pipe dream, right? You make an account like this and you know that the community is flooded with accounts that are super similar, and everyone's got fantastic content. And I never anticipated that it was something that was going to grow to the point that it has and sort of where it's going. It's been super rewarding, and I think it kind of happened very organically, and I think it was probably a few months after I started it that I realized, wow, this is gathering steam. And I think my favorite part is the connections that I'm able to make. So, you have the component of sharing your journey, but then you have the community building, and that to me is what makes everything worth it. It's almost like a part-time job, working on the account and the blog and the content, and obviously I love it, which is why I do it. And what makes all of that worthwhile is being able to form relationships and meet people. And I actually have a trip planned to Florida in a couple weeks to go visit a couple girlfriends who I've met.
That's amazing.
On Instagram. So it's just such a cool experience, and not anything that I had ever perceived it would become. But I'm having a blast.
So how do you think it all really started to happen organically? Was it from the use of your hashtags, your feed theme? Were you commenting out in the community? What really made your account stand apart?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a combination of all of the above. Instagram is such a hard code to crack, and I constantly am trying to think through, okay, what is the algorithm doing now? How do I maximize my reach?
What do I do?
Things like that. Right. And just nobody knows. But I think a lot of it has to do with the engagement. Obviously, hashtag strategy is important, and as I do with anything new that I throw myself into, I did a ton of reading and research and checking forums and things like that. But I think more than anything, the biggest piece of it was not just looking for engagement on my own account, but going out and making connections with other people.
Right.
And part of my platform, a big part of it, is the authenticity, the openness, the honesty.
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I noticed.
So glad that you recognize me, because that's what I want to be. Is I just want to be a real person who's opening this window to my life. And so what I tried to do was connect, and so it was a lot of forming those relationships and commenting and liking, and slowly over time you start to get to know people through that, and then you start chatting through DM, and you're sharing tips and suggestions, and the whole thing just kind of snowballs. So I think that had a lot to do with it. It was really just getting to know people in a very genuine way.
So was it gradual, or did it one day suddenly you were found?
It was definitely gradual. I think, every day you see a little bit of growth, and some days are good days and some days are bad days, and it's easy to get caught up in the numbers game. But I think so important to remember why we're doing it in the first place. And so I found the growth to be relatively steady over the past few months. And I just keep trying to focus on doing my thing, building my community, forming my relationships, trying to put my honest life out there for everyone to see, which was a little bit, I think, intimidating at first, especially when you just see so many influencers and so many accounts out there that are just like, they seem perfect, right? Like that's the big stigma around social media, is everybody's lives seem perfect, and that's never what I want it to be. And so, I want to share the beautiful parts of my journey, but I also want to share the parts that maybe aren't so pretty, because everybody goes through that stuff. And so that's definitely a little bit scary, just kind of putting yourself out there for everybody to see, and knowing that you're susceptible to judgment and criticism and things like that. But I've never let it derail me, because I think, from the community perspective, first of all, everyone's going to have an opinion, right? That's just sort of human nature, and it comes with the territory. But from the community perspective, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. People who commiserate, people who say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I'm not the only one going through this." So I think it's sort of been nice to just like have that reality check, like, okay, we're all in this together, and
right,
nobody is going to be perfect.
Right. So at what point did the like sponsorships start rolling in? Because I noticed you sponsor a lot of products.
Yeah, it actually happened a lot quicker than I had expected. Two Dark Bays shop, who is fantastic. I just love Vanessa so much. She was the first one who connected with me. And she and I think our accounts were pretty much on pace in terms of size around the time that she had reached out. We both just had a few hundred followers, so we were really like in the same spot, both kind of getting started. And so that was really just a couple months in, and it was just sort of little by little happening after that. And I've had, a couple where I've applied for ambassadorships, and then other companies have reached out to me now that I sort of have a little bit more recognition, and then the sponsorships requests started coming in, and so it just was sort of little by little. A lot of, I think, the connections there too come from doing things like giveaways, or getting to know people through mutual friends and connections, and so again, the community aspect is so huge, and it even though it's a big platform, it's kind of a small community, and so there's a lot of like getting to know people through people.
Oh, for sure. Do you have any products that like you are so shocked to be a sponsor for, or something that you like are really behind?
Oh my gosh, I love them all. I have to shout out, oh my gosh, where do I even start? I definitely have to shout out, like I said, Two Dark Bays shop. I think just seeing her growth and her kindness has been just so fantastic. She just is one of those super genuine people, and it's exciting to see that being rewarded. She curates from a lot of other small businesses, so there's a ton of partnership involved, and sort of everyone supporting everyone and lifting each other up, and I just absolutely love that. And then Heart Outfitters is fantastic too, and they've expanded recently to go beyond just a focus on equestrianism, and sort of integrate all of the athletic space. So a lot of their clothing and their accessories are now applicable, like they're targeted toward all athletes, but they have an equestrian background too, and so it's sort of like strong women, like empowering strong women, which is a message I absolutely adore. Gosh, the list like I don't even know where to go next. Like, they're all fantastic, and the reason that I work with these companies is because they're all run by really strong women who want to be a positive influence in the community. Herd of Zebras have this incredible message where, everyone's stripes are different, essentially. We all have our own adversities and our challenges, but we stick together and we rise up, and I just am so for that. Tasty Treat Company is a young woman who is just blowing my mind with her creativity and her talent in curating her horse treats. she's in school and she has absolutely blown doors with her company, and she's just so artistic. And so it's just cool to see all of these different small businesses growing and be part of their journey and really kind of follow along with them and really believe in the message and believe in what they're doing.
Yeah, and supporting them, and they're supporting you back. It's great
fantastic
thing. Yeah.
So if you're looking to start, an Instagram account or a blog, and you're finding yourself saying, I don't have enough time. I want to ride my horse. I want to do this. I want to do that. What do you suggest that people do to find the time in the day to start theirs?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. I won't lie. I get home from the barn at 9:30 at night sometimes. I work my 9-to-5 job, and then I get home from the barn at 9:30, and then I come home and I eat and I work on my content. And so it definitely it's long days and it's a lot of work, and I'm one of those people who is constantly going. But if you have the passion and the drive, then you just find a way. And so a lot of it is efficiency too. Planning content ahead of time I found can be super helpful. Carving out a little bit of time on the weekend. You can do like an hour here, an hour there. I write all my blog posts in advance and I pre-schedule them for the week. So that's been super helpful for me. Same with editing photos. I'll edit photos in batch up front, and then throughout the week I'll sort of sprinkle them in on a day-to-day basis. But I've definitely found that it's easier to do as much pre-work as possible, and that way, if you have a long day and you're exhausted and you don't want to go home and spend 2 hours on Instagram, like
right.
Yeah.
It's not practical.
It's social media, like this is your time, right? And so it's a fine line, like definitely a little bit balancing act. And I did recently post on the struggle to juggle just riding in life and let alone social media, but there are some compromises that you make. Like I might choose to spend time doing that. Like I never sacrifice my horse time. That is one thing that is just a total priority to me, and everything else in my life aside from work pretty much takes a backseat to that, because that's my calling and my passion and my love, and it keeps me sane, mostly.
I feel like every person we've had on here has been so passionate that they just have like 8 things that they do, and they do it so well at the same time.
And still find time to ride.
Yeah.
It's your driver and your motivator. And I have to call out Saddles and Sass. Sarah is one of my good friends. I got a lot of heart for her. I met her on Instagram. She's a fellow Instagrammer and blogger and is located in Florida and rides dressage. But she just had this incredible post within the past couple days on motivation versus determination, and it resonated with me in a really big way. So what she says is that motivation is sort of that like initial spark and the passion and the excitement. Determination is what keeps you going and moves you to the finish line. So it's that drive that even when it stops being fun, pushes you forward and allows you to continue sort of marching to the beat of your drum and working to achieve your goals when things get hard. So I really loved her take on it, and I think it's so true. You have to have both in order to be successful at what you do.
Oh, absolutely. Drive, consistency, it's everything.
It is. It totally is.
So when you first got Odie, where did you guys start, and where are you at now? Because this whole Instagram is about your journey with him. So what was the beginning, and where are you at?
Oh, the beginning. He is such a little unicorn. He's incredible, and I am so lucky to have him. He's one of those guys. He's got a ton of heart. He has a lot of raw talent, but he had no training. The woman that I bought him from is absolutely wonderful. She had a few horses, and she had actually, I think, found him on Facebook as well, and had only owned him for a few months. And she was hoping that he would be her kid's pony when they got older, but the kids weren't really that interested in riding, and she, as I said, had a couple other horses. So when I came in and I leased him for a few months, it sort of was an obvious progression for us, for me to take the plunge and become a first-time horse owner, which I haven't regretted for a minute, even though my bank account might. So I was very, very rusty because I'd been out of the saddle for a long time, and he had started as a trail horse and a cart pony is the story, and I don't know anything about his background beyond that. I don't know if he ever jumped before.
How old was he when you got him?
He was 8.
Okay.
So he may have been an auction pony, for all I know. He's grayed. I did a DNA test on him, but the results, I think he's just so diluted that you really can't, like, parse apart where he came from.
Right.
And he's a good guy, so he was trying really hard, but, he was under-muscled, and he had sort of an upside-down neck and was really inverted and didn't know how to bend and had never taken contact in his life. Like, couldn't pick up the left lead. It was like tried to run out the door when another horse was leaving the ring. So there were just a lot of things that needed attention, but I loved his personality. He was so curious and so smart. I loved his work ethic. And he's super fun to ride. Like, he tries really hard. He's incredibly comfortable. He's perfect size for me. He's 14'2", and I'm 5'2", so I'm gonna be a pony squisher forever. But we really just started out in a place where it was just for fun. For me, it was just to get saddle time.
Right.
And I knew I was going to have fun with him, and I didn't really expect to ever show again at that point. I didn't know if I would ever really take it that seriously. I hadn't sought out to buy a horse. I was just doing a half lease. So
Right.
it started out being fun. And obviously I fell more and more into it, and I ended up moving him a few months after I bought him. I moved him to a different farm to work with a dressage trainer and really try to kind of level both of us up. So at that point I had recognized we had done our first season on, like, the local jumper circuit, which was sort of a miracle that we got through that, because I don't think either one of us was really equipped for it. But we got out there and we gave it our all. The trainer and the barn family that I was riding with at the time went out to all of these local shows, and I kind of got, like, strong-armed into it a little bit, and I said to myself, okay, I never want to show again, but what do I have to lose? So I did it, and I was like, wow, this is really fun. This can be a different experience than I had as a kid, where it was just so hyper-competitive that it would stress me out. And so then once I got to that point, I was like, I really want to be able to level up and kind of see where we can go. So after I bought him, I moved him to a different facility to work with a dressage trainer, and that was when it got hard. That was like, go back to basics. We spent the winter essentially doing walk trot and trying to teach him how to use his body. And it was just, I'm not a patient person, and it was an excruciating experience for me because it forced me to be patient. You can't train a horse overnight. I'd never trained a horse before. And I don't think I realized that he would be a project at the time when I bought him, because I just wanted to bomb around. But here I was saying, all right, I want to do it right, and I want to do right by him. And so it was just a lot of, like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and we were slowly getting there, and he would get frustrated, and I would get frustrated. And so for months, that was kind of the progression. And then finally, we just have these moments where it's like, you work so hard, and you start to feel a little discouraged because you're not seeing the progress. And then all of a sudden something clicks, and he finally goes, oh, that's what you want me to do.
Now, do you feel like he's training you as well, in a way?
Totally. He absolutely is. He has, in so many ways, forced me to be a better rider, because he demands it of me, right? If I'm trying to teach him something, I need to be really clear with what I'm asking and what I want the outcome to be. And so my riding has improved so much over the past couple years. And I think one of the most rewarding things about it is that we're growing together. And it's just become this awesome partnership that has taken us so many fun places together, and just so far beyond where I ever thought that we would be. And it kind of feels like, the world is your oyster. I had a lot of people because of his, questionable breeding, and I wasn't established in the community, and I'm like the underdog going out with this like awkward looking gangly thing. And competing against all of these warm bloods in the jumper ring. And so I had a lot of people tell me, no, you can't do this, or you don't belong here. And you don't want to tell me no, because I'm going to then try to prove that the answer is yes.
I'm the same way.
It was a motivator for me. I was like, you know what? I want to, more than anything, prove to myself that I can do this. And that's kind of what we did. We went out and we just did it.
So what's next for you guys? What are you planning on doing for the summer and, moving on?
Yeah. I would love to take him as far as he can go. And I think one of the most fun things about Odie is I had no idea where he maxes out. He's a little guy. Like I said, he doesn't have a ton of jumping background, but we're now comfortably jumping a meter. He's gone up to 3.6 easily.
Okay.
I have no idea what he can do. And so I just want to continue the sort of forward momentum and see where it takes us. I don't have any goals in terms of how high I want to get him, because I don't think it's about that.
Right.
I love jumping high. I love being airborne. I have since I was a kid, and my dad would throw me in the pool. So jumping is definitely where my heart lies. But like I said, I want to do right by him and really work at his pace. So this summer we're going to be doing the meter classes, which is super exciting. Probably just showing locally, so a couple of rated shows up in the Massachusetts area, and probably some of the unrated jumper shows as well. Really just to gain experience and kind of like mark the progress for us. That's really what showing is about for me. Is it's not necessarily about winning. It's more about seeing the milestones and the growth in ourselves.
Well, that's really exciting. Thank you for coming on our podcast. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll enter our next segment, Canter Banter.
Do you love horses and live the equestrian lifestyle? Be sure to check out our brand new blog at www.yourhorsefarm.com. We publish 3 posts per week and feature a free printable equine checklist every month. Yourhorsefarm.com is a great equine online resource, so be sure to share with all the horse lovers in your life. And remember, laugh much and ride often. This podcast is brought to you by RAMM Horse Fencing and Stalls, the one-stop shop for your horse farm. RAMM is family-owned and operated and has been in business for over 30 years. We welcome you to call in and speak with an expert about your next project today at 866-653-8984. Again, that's 866-653-8984.
And we're back. Today on our Canter Banter discussion, we'll be talking about #FailFriday. So on your Instagram, every Friday, you post a fail. Do you have any specific ones that you'd like to talk about?
Oh my gosh, there are as many fails as successes, if not more. And I think sharing them is so interesting for me. Like I mentioned earlier, it's super scary to kind of call out the bloopers and the moments when essentially we sucked. But I think it's also like very unifying because everybody has that. And what's been so fascinating to me is that my Fail Fridays actually perform the best out of pretty much all of my posts. So clearly there's an appetite out there, and whether it's people who come to be critical, or I think mostly it's people who come to just like validate that everybody, is in the same boat. They sometimes just kind of take off. And so one of those is a fail of the two of us. I'm actually watching it right now on my phone. It's the two of us trying to get over an oxer. It's a 2-3 stride. Okay, so it's an oxer and 3 strides to a vertical with a ground pull in the middle. And these combinations are sort of like a lifeblood of our training. We do a ton of grid work. We ride super technically in our lessons because that's what's going to help us both grow and develop.
Right.
And as we, my trainer is really fantastic about knowing just how much to push and when. So it's all about Odie's confidence, my confidence. He stretches us, but then he backs off. And so it's worked really, really well, but obviously there are going to be moments when it doesn't go so well. And so in this particular video, we're coming around the turn in the indoor, approaching this combination, and we jumped through it multiple times before and had no issues. But the height went up, and I started overthinking. I didn't see my distance, and then I made a game time decision about my takeoff spot, and that's one of the things that I'm working through, is making a decision early and sticking to it, because, you know, whether it's a long spot where you get deep, if you have a plan and you stick to the plan, then the horse will go, okay, I'm going to do this with you. If you change your mind at the last minute, like I did, then you get a big old nope. That's exactly what Odie did. So I didn't give him a distance at all. We got up to the base of the oxer, and he was like, I don't think so. And he stopped. And so what tends to happen sometimes when he stops is that I then get apprehensive, which makes him apprehensive, and so then we're both psyching ourselves out.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and then history repeats. And so the first stop, we took out the entire fence. The standards, the poles, everything came down, and you can just kind of like see my face afterwards. Like,
did you stay on?
What did I just do? I did.
Okay.
I did stay on.
That's impressive.
Doing all of the fails and riding all of the Odie bucks has somehow given me super glue in my seat. So that's the one like vindication that I have is I do tend to stick it pretty well somehow. So I stayed on, but then we approached it a few more times, and it was just the same thing. Like I could feel it. He was going to stop, but I tried anyway, and then we stopped. We went around, and then we stopped. We went around, and then we stopped. Finally, we put it down to a vertical because clearly the oxer was just messing with our heads. And we got him over the vertical, and then we go up to the second element of the combination, and he stops there too. And so one of the, I think, most insightful training tools that I got out of that lesson was, okay, well, this isn't working, so don't try to beat him over it. Like, don't keep doing something that's not working. Let's do a single oxer. Let's do a different line and just get your heads in a different space and on a good note. And so that's what we did. And that video is so interesting because a lot of people were, you know, commiserating and saying, I've totally been there, and saying, oh my gosh, I don't know how you stayed in the saddle. I would have gone flying over his head. And then I started, as it gained traction, I started getting some criticism too. Like, clearly the horse doesn't want to jump. This is all the rider's fault, which, yes, absolutely, I will take full responsibility. It was my fault. But it's so interesting to see how polarizing the Fail Fridays can be. I had another one where I put him in a Pessoa lunging system. At the recommendation, you know, we're really working on building top line and working on self-carriage, and so it was at the recommendation of my trainer, my chiropractor, a prior trainer that I had worked with had used it. And the first time we took video, and the first time I asked him to canter in it, he got nervous. And, you know, it's a foreign sensation. It's a little bit of pressure. He wasn't used to it. And he kind of threw a fit, which is what he does when there's something new that he doesn't understand. And so that was a Fail Friday, too, that I shared, was here's this training tool that we're starting to use. And, well, it didn't go so well the first time. But then at the end, you can see he gets the hang of it. He's cantering more comfortably. He's settling. And that one was a huge topic of discussion. And I usually will just, you know, I try to respond to all the comments that I can and really, you know, dedicate attention to the people who are taking time out of their day to engage with me and interact with me. That one was pretty, it was a little bit volatile. And I try to stay out of it when people start kind of going back and forth, and I respect everyone's opinions.
Yeah.
And if I feel like there's misinformation, sometimes I might jump in, but I try not to micromanage that unless I feel like it's getting out of hand. And that was one where I did need to kind of insert myself and talk through it with some of the people who had commented. But, you know, I like to give people the freedom to express their opinions and share their thoughts, because everybody's going to have different process. And I think, you know, the only time that I would interject is if I feel like there's a misunderstanding or there's misinformation, or if someone is directly targeting somebody else, because obviously you want it to be a constructive, like, open environment for everybody. And so that
Right.
was really my first experience getting criticism. And I actually had a friend who said to me, she was reading through the comments at one point, and she said to me, wow, you know, you've made it on social media when you start getting hate. Which
Yeah.
I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, I love the Fail Fridays. I put them out there all the time. Like you said, I pretty much have a fail coming out of every one of my lessons, and that's just part of the training process. And so my whole mentality is I want to be as transparent as I can, because this is the journey and that's a part of it. And you know, it's not all sunshines and rainbows and winning horse shows and beautiful horses. It's blood, sweat, tears, and failure. And I think it's just as important to look at those tough moments and the setbacks as it is to look at the successes.
I feel like you can clearly see that on your Instagram. Like I said, it's extremely authentic, and it definitely makes you feel like you're, like, riding alongside of you when you post.
Well, thank you so much. That's definitely what I'm going for. I just, it's about human connection for me, right? You know, I want to kind of pull people in and involve them and share stories. That's how we learn. We learn from each other, and we learn as we go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we would love to see your Fail Fridays. You can tag us at RAMM Fence, and you can also tag Little Pony Big Jump. We hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast and encourage you to share with all your equestrian family and friends. You can tune into the Late Night Riders podcast show every Friday night. Each episode will be uploaded exclusively on our YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with our latest shows. Do you have a topic you'd like to discuss? We want to hear from you. You may email us at podcast@rammfence.com, or feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you.